Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of ScreamBox Essential Picks. And today we have a special guest, Boomer from Podcast in the Woods. Boomer, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, my friend. And yeah, this is such a neat concept, and
Thank
I'm
you.
so happy and honored to be like the first guest. It's crazy to me. Uh, but I mean, I am, and I'm sure you well know, a big fan of schlock and a big fan of things that are a little under the radar. I kind of like to bring those to light. So I mean, it makes a little bit of sense, I guess. But yeah, I'm doing fantastic, and it's good to be here.
Hell yeah. I think this might be your second or third time being on the show. It has to be. So
Yeah, yeah.
you've definitely, you've been on here for a while, and it's always great having you on, man. I love your insight on films and the wacky things that you find, because you like the wacky stuff. You really do.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I like kind of things that are off the beaten path. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love my blockbusters. I mean, the last year X made it into my top five for the year. Actually, it was my number one. I really enjoyed Men and Barbarian, but then I also really loved Men. Not a
Yeah.
whole lot of people like that one,
Yeah, that was a wacky
um,
one.
but also something like Incantation, which
Oh,
was
yeah.
released on Netflix because I'm a big Asian horror fan. And so, yeah, sometimes when it comes to me, the wackier, the better.
Yeah, and no, this is a Screenbox segment. It's not sponsored. We're not sponsored yet or anything, but we have their blessings to use their logos and all that stuff and to highlight their films on here. Because I know that you have been on Screenbox for a while now, and as you said, you love Asian horror, and they have a lot of Asian horror on Screenbox.
Yeah, they do. They have a really good selection on there, and again, both from things that are really well known, and things that are a little more obscure. There, in fact, there's a couple of them on there that I'd never seen before, and I know that you and Gabby reviewed one
Yeah, The
not too
Dawning.
long ago. Yes, which was fantastic.
That
So
movie, oh my god! I know we're not here to talk about that one, but that
okay.
movie is an essential. It is an essential. I'm gonna say it right here. If it's not on this series, but we have talked about it before, and it's on Screenbox, it's obviously an essential pick. All right, so just put
Yes.
that already in there. Maybe we'll go back and highlight them again once time passes and whatnot. But The Dawning, that one hits hard, man. You're not really ready for it, and that's why I really liked it. So I'm glad that you liked that one too, Boomer.
Oh yeah.
um, but today we're here to talk about two films. My pick is it's crazy, all right? It's a Bollywood answer to Scream over here. It's called Shh. It's so funny. It's long as hell, but it honestly it flies by because of how wacky it is. But Boomer, what did you bring to the table?
So yeah, and that's weird because all day I've been calling it Saw. But so I'm going to be talking about 2016's The Barn, and not a lot of people have heard about this one. I hadn't heard about it until last year, and the guys from Scream Team Releasing were at a horror convention that I went to, Monster Mania,
Oh wow.
and they had like a little booth set up, and they had all their Blu-rays there. And I'm always looking for new things, and they had a whole table of things that I've never even heard of. And I'm picking down through there and all this stuff. And I went in September, so it's like right at the height of spooky season.
Yeah.
And so this is a Halloween themed horror. We'll get into it. I'm not gonna give all my points right now, but I was so happy to get to talk to those guys because they were so enthusiastic about all the titles that they had, and I'm so glad that this made its way to Screambox, some kind of streaming service, because more people need to see this movie.
Yeah, I agree. And what's also really funny, when you brought this one up, I was like, oh my God, there's a Barn too. And you know what's really funny? We just had Drew Marvick on. He's in the Barn too. So he
Oh,
did,
that's
Pool
awesome.
Party Massacre, and he's actually an actor in the second one. So after this, Boomer, if you haven't seen the second one, go watch it. Go
Okay,
watch it
yeah,
because it's
I
wacky.
haven't yet.
It's really wacky. I'm not sure if that
Awesome.
one's on Screenbox. It might not be yet. Um, the thing is like, I love Screenbox, but their catalog is so big It's so big, and it's growing every month. They put on like 20 plus titles a month, guys. It's nuts. So that's why I want to do this series. I want people to know, in case if there's a movie that came out and it just got lost in the sauce somewhere. The one that I have has been on there for about a month. I want to say The Barn. I think it's been on there longer. I think. I should probably reach out to Alex or somebody from ScreamBox to give me the dates of when it was brought to the service, so that way when I'm doing this I can tell you guys when it dropped and whatnot and how long it's been on there. But yeah, we're here to highlight these two films. Boomer, you are the guest, so I will let you talk about your film first, because it is a little bit more exciting than the one that I picked.
Don't sell it short. Don't sell it short. They're both good films. But so this movie, The Barn, is, like I said, I picked this up in September, and part of the appeal for that was that it was a Halloween movie.
Yeah.
And this is one film, and I want people to see it, but I also kind of want people to wait until October to watch this movie.
Yeah.
Because it really, really, really gives you those wonderful Halloween vibes. And it's so fantastic. And I'd heard before that this was described, well, it was described to me as an R-rated Goosebumps episode.
Yeah.
And
that's a great
I
way to
can
put
really, really see that. Yeah. It's so quirky. It's so quirky, and it's so campy, but in a very, very good and fun way.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the way that it's shot. So it has that VHS graininess to it. And a lot of films do this wrong. They really do, where it's just kind of a gimmick. Although this one it's set in 1989, so it's the perfect time frame for that. It puts you in that mood, and it uses it to really good effects. I think. Speaking of effects, the effects in this movie are all practical,
yep,
except for a little bit of lighting here and there, and a little bit of effects on the demons or the spirits or whatever. But as far as the gore effects, it is all glorious practical effects, which we absolutely love.
I eat that up.
Yes, because I've seen films. I went to watch the Grinch in theaters last year, and I was so mad that there was so much CGI blood in that, but you don't get any of that here. It's all splatter. There are guts flying. There are heads rolling. There are orgies of ridiculous violence. It's insane. It really, really, once it picks up, once it ramps up, it just goes, and it's nonstop until the very end. And it balances like just a little bit of silliness and, seriousness and kind of charm and heart, really, really well. And I'll do the IMDb real quick, because I do want to get the synopsis all out of the way.
All right.
And because the IMDb, they are notorious with our show for doing terrible synopsis.
Yeah.
I think the worst one was Ju-on, when it talks about that there's a nefarious reason why some kid is not at school. I'm like, what the?
Oh,
what is that? But this one's actually pretty decent. So The Barn says it's Halloween 1989. Best friends Sam and Josh are trying to enjoy what's left of their final Devil's Night before graduating high school. But trouble arises when two pals and a group of friends take a detour on their way to the rock concert, finding an old abandoned farm and awakening the evil inside. Now, it's up to Sam. Yeah, it's up to Sam and Josh to find a way to protect their friends and defeat the creatures that lurk within the barn. And yeah, that's pretty good. And
that makes
me
want to go and watch it.
Oh yeah, definitely. You said though that you had seen this. It's like this is your third time. What was the first time you saw this one?
I had a friend who had I believe it was a DVD, or he had it online or something. This was like a long time ago though. So like I watched this probably like 4 years ago, I want to say, give or take. And it blew my mind for how just crazy it was, because the things I was watching at the time were higher budget, 80s movies, or even like newer ones. And I saw this one, And we were going through a bunch of really, really bad movies. A lot of really bad movies. One was called Kids Go in Woods, Kids Get Killed. All right. Some really, really bad stuff. And he had this one. I think it was a DVD or something that he got. And we watched it. And I was like, whoa, this is nuts. Like the monsters look great. The soundtrack, like the music that's playing in this, like, oh my God, I loved it. So I remember that. I know there was another time. I don't remember that one, but then today I watched it again. I was like, yep, this is bringing back some memories, man. For sure. And I enjoyed it a lot. It's super fun.
Yeah, the music in this, you're right. I didn't even touch on that yet, but the music in this is bitchin'. And there's several tracks that are actually written for this film. And again, like this is a low budget movie and funded partly on Indiegogo. And so for them to be able to do what they did, and I don't want to sell it short, because a lot of times if you're talking about in an independent horror film, especially ones that are done on Kickstarter or Indiegogo or something like that, there's that certain stigma to it, where it's like, oh, it's good, for an independent film. But no, this is super entertaining. This movie is an absolute blast to experience. The lore in it is really neat, and I love the different characters. The different creatures. You have the boogeyman and Hollow Jack and what was it, Candy Corn?
The Scarecrow.
Candy Corn Scarecrow. Yeah. You do get a little bit of gratuitous titties in there for those of you who like that.
Yeah. And you have actually, two, one big star and one that he's big, but more in the music and whatnot. But we have Linnea Quigley and Ari Lehman that are in here, which is really, really cool to see them in there. Kind of like a throwback, Yeah,
that was really neat. Yeah, I love the what was it, Dr. Rock?
Yes, Dr. Rock.
His little episode.
Oh man.
That was so cool and so much fun. And I love the fact that not only is this fun, but it's like it's a little bit dark. It kind of is, because they are not afraid to off anybody, and I'm not going to spoil anything about this. I do not want to spoil this movie, because honestly, you have to go and watch this. It's such a good time. But the ending of this film, I really loved how it ended. That the last shot of it was just absolutely perfect to me. I thought that was so cool. And yeah, like I said, the relationships in this movie, they feel just so natural.
Yeah.
And so organic. The acting, a lot of times in some of these movies, you get acting that is just not great or a little cringy. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm enjoying it, but I kind of have to overlook this or I have to overlook that. But everybody in here, and I mean, it's not Oscar worthy, but everybody in here is doing a really good job with the things that they've been given. And I believe all these characters. I believe the direction that this goes, as far as you can with killer boogeyman that are running around, slicing people's heads off and that kind of thing. But it surprised me. Like I took this home and expected to have a good time with it, especially with the time frame that I was watching it in. But I never expected for this really just to blow me away. And again, like this is not Hereditary, but it's not trying to be Hereditary. It knows exactly what it is, and it's leaning hard in those wonderful spooky vibes, and it's so much better for that. It's honestly well written, well directed. In fact, there's a couple of shots in this film that are legitimately beautiful.
Yeah, no, I agree on that. Yeah.
The one where they're walking to town in front of the moon, like you could hang that on your wall. It's really, really good.
Yeah, no, I agree on everything that you said. And yes, this is an essential pick. You need to go and watch this. If you have ScreamBox, if you're thinking about getting ScreamBox or anything like that, or if you've never even heard of ScreamBox and you're stumbling upon this episode on this podcast, go watch The Barn. I mean, obviously you can go watch this everywhere else, but we want you to be on ScreamBox because we want to be supporting this really small platform that's getting huge. All right. And I always say this, we have Shudder, they are a horror platform just like ScreamBox, but competition is so good. And as of late, since I think ScreamBox has really been proving that it's like a site you need to be on, it almost seems like Shudder's slowing down on their releases. When you see ScreamBox, when they're like, hey, this is what's dropping this month, and there's like almost 30 titles, and you're like, what the hell? You're like, okay, I need to. So this is a movie you need to check out on ScreamBox. Go support them. I think they're still doing their 7-day trial that you can go and do, or anything like that. And also, I believe you don't have to be signed up to watch some of the titles on there. So if you want a taste of what they have, you can go and watch them for free. And then obviously if you want the exclusives, like I'm pretty sure The Barn is one that you need to sign up for, and Shh is definitely one you need to sign up for. But there are some titles on there if you want to give it a shot. Because go and watch a film, see how it's like on the site. And everybody who is on there, they're very, 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 very nice, and they will help you. And if you have you want more recommendations other than the ones that Boomer and I are talking about, you can go and be like, hey, I want some recommendations for ScreamBox. And they'll shoot you like 10. They'll just say, okay, tell me what you like, and here are 10 you need to go check out immediately. So there's a lot of options out there and a lot of ways for you to figure out what to watch. But I like this one because we can go more in depth on a couple of films. And the one that, Boomer said, The Barn, it's wacky, it's fun. It also kind of feels familiar because, it's got that cheese to it. And that's what I really like about these types of movies, is having some kind of familiarity. I'm so awful at saying shit, but you know what I mean. For it to feel familiar, and we want to highlight those ones because this is one that you were even saying, Boomer, you've never even heard of it before, and that's why I want to do this, because I want people to go and give more light to these films, to these directors, have them make more things. Let them know that you saw this wherever it may be. Say you saw it on ScreamBox and you want more from them. Like I said, there is a Barn 2. And I think there even might be one after that, but I'm not 100% sure. So there's a lot that you can go and check out.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, right now I think the Barn 2 just came out like last year.
Yes, it's fairly fresh.
Yeah, and so I don't think that there's a Barn 3 yet. But what I will say about ScreamBox, just to kind of piggyback on what you said. So you have the whole, Shudder, like you're talking about, Shudder and ScreamBox kind of thing. But I mean, both of them honestly are really, really inexpensive, like pennies a month. And if you're a person like me, and there may not be a whole lot of people out there like me because I'm kind of a weirdo, but 95% of the stuff that I watch is horror. And so ScreamBox is perfect for me. Yes, you do have titles that crisscross between both platforms, but ScreamBox has a ton of stuff that is unique to them, and because ScreamBox is kind of a thing like after my own heart, where they like to kind of dig things up that there is not a whole lot of other light that is being shined upon these titles that are good titles, and they're streaming them on their platform, and so. Like for me, watching Netflix is kind of like a waste of time because you may have, 1, 2, 3, 4 good titles on there, but Netflix just does not seem to care about horror that much, which is weird because horror is really, really blowing up right now. So yes. I don't understand that mindset, but you could cancel some of your other subscriptions that are really not carrying their weight and pick up ScreamBox, and I promise you it's absolutely worth it because not only do they have these titles that you may have never seen before and you really, really need to, but they have some of the giants in there as well. They have one of my favorite franchises of all time, which is The Ring. It's so good. It's so fantastic and mind blowing. So they have a ton of stuff on there, and so. If you're wondering, like, what's the point of having two horror streaming services? Both of them are kind of unique in their focus and in what they do, and they both bring different things and different aspects to your viewing parties, your watches, and so it's absolutely, if you're like kind of one, it's absolutely worth it. There's some good shit on here. Go watch The Barn. Like I think it's like $4.99 or something like that to rent. So I mean, there's your ScreamBox like subscription right there.
Yep.
And it's worth it for this like one fucking movie. But there's so much good stuff out there.
Yeah, and I agree. And competition is a great thing. All right, we got to keep that going. We need to see. Oh, there's this new movie coming out. Okay, which service is going to grab it first? It's kind of fun to being like, okay, so this one's probably going to be going up. And as we know, over on ScreamBox, they have Cinedigm, who's like their acquisition service that they use, and they have been getting a lot of really good stuff. We've had Brandon Hill on here before with Alex, who runs all of the ScreamBox socials and stuff like that, and we sat down and talked to them about like why they're picking certain things. So I really do suggest that you go back on our show and find that episode and listen to how they're describing the service and what they're trying to do and all that stuff, because it's very, very consumer friendly, and they're even fans and subscribers of Shudder. So I mean, we all support each other. We have to. But moving on from Boomer's movie, we're gonna switch gears a little bit, and we're gonna slightly slow it down a bit, but it's still gonna be kind of over the top. I know when I told you about this one, you're like, oh, I never even heard of that one. I'm like, yeah, this is like a call to Scream, but with musical numbers in it. And it's Bollywood, and you're like, oh my. Oh, man. So this one's called Shh from 2003. It's a Bollywood horror movie, which when I was younger, I kind of went into the whole Bollywood, I guess, feel of wanting to watch movies that are like that, because I had friends that were watching a lot of Bollywood, and I didn't know they did horror movies. I had no idea until ScreamBox says, hey, we're going to be bringing this Bollywood horror film called Shh. It's kind of like a parody or a call to Scream, and we're actually recording this on essentially the release day of Scream 6, or this is Thursday. I have a few theaters here that are showing it early, which I'm going to see it tonight. That's why I'm wearing my Scream shirt. Nice. But it also comes out tomorrow. So we're going to be doing this one because this needs to be highlighted. If you want a movie that essentially slams Scream 1 and Scream 2 together, this is it. This is it. Because it's long. It's almost 3 hours long. But it goes by really fast. I have the synopsis right here. And I think it kind of, this says the same thing as like the first Scream movie. It's a serial killer is around, which is responsible for taking many lives, including that of Malani and her boyfriend. The police are unable to comprehend, especially when this killer leaves no evidence at every crime scene. So it's essentially the same thing as Scream. But before we dive into this, Boomer, since this is your first watch, what did you think of this?
Okay, so yeah, he leaves no evidence behind except for tons of DNA.
Yes.
Every suit that he leaves.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing when I was watching it. Oh,
and that's not a spoiler because that happens right off the bat. And it happens every single time. But this was really, really unique. I mean, honestly, yes, it follows a lot of that familiar feel, those same beats as Scream, but if anybody has watched Indian cinema, and I have a little bit, I'm not here to pretend that I'm an expert or anything like that, but I've seen a few horror films that they put out and that are really, really good. So I do kind of appreciate their aesthetic. Now, I've never seen a Bollywood horror musical, and
yeah, it's crazy.
And I'm kind of overselling that because it's not like a musical. They're not singing constantly or anything like that. I think there's 2 or 3 musical numbers in the thing. And it kind of makes sense a little bit, like with the way that the scene is going, kind of. I mean, it's kind of like one of those Disney things where they're singing about like the situation that's going on, or I think one of the things is like they go to the club and everybody starts dancing around and
Yeah.
singing and stuff like that. So I mean, it makes a little bit of sense in the context of the film. And you're right, this is a really, really long film. And what I will say, as my one negative, is it's a little too long.
I agree.
They probably could have cut out, somewhere between 30 or 40 minutes of this movie, and just some extra stuff that they had on there. I think there was like a 3-4 minute scene where they're riding to the island on a boat or something like that.
Yes.
I mean, it didn't need to be. I understand you're getting in the boat, you get to the island. I understand that you got there, but but aside from that, you're absolutely right. I think 40 or 50 minutes into the movie, and it just seemed like it was flying by. And the good thing about this is, especially for me, because I'm a foreign film fan, and so this is subtitle only. And I know that scares people off. Don't let that scare you off. It's good, because you get more of the emotion of the characters and what they're going through, and you get the actual acting of the actors portraying it. You don't have somebody that's screaming their head off and some dub guy going, "Oh my God, put the knife down."
It's true.
So I appreciate a film when it does that, when it's not afraid to just showcase the talent that is on hand, because these are really, really talented actors. Everybody is doing a really good job. The story is familiar. The story is a great story. You get some action fighting scenes in this movie. I mean, it's kind of all over the place, but in like a good way, to where it doesn't feel muddled. It really, as long as it is, it really doesn't feel muddled, and it seems to stick to the formula and stick to the line that they are treading. And so it's a long movie, but it honestly, it doesn't feel as long as it is, and it's really, really fun. It's kind of a fun, wacky, crazy movie.
Yeah, I agree. And like there are points in here where you think, oh my God, they kind of lost the plot, but then they show you something that happened like 20 minutes ago, and you're like, oh yeah, that's what they're doing. Like towards the end, like you totally forget about the cops or even like looking for them, and then they show up and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, they were trying to find them. There's a lot of really, really cool things that happen here. The effects that they use, because there's a lot of like blood and stuff on it. I thought it was used pretty well for this type of film. Like I said, I haven't really watched a lot of Bollywood in a long, long time, and I didn't even know they did horror films. So I'm gonna have to go and find out some more, or maybe ScreamBox will be nice to us and put some more on the service. Who knows? But I was going on Rotten Tomatoes. I wanted to see, did anybody else see this? Did anybody? And not really. There's no scores for critics or viewers or anything like that. And it's kind of sad to know that something like this, maybe because they saw that it was like so long, or like, oh, it's Bollywood, it's not going to be that great. But this is one that you need to see. And it says that it was released on streaming April 14th, 2020. So maybe it was on a different service somewhere. Sometimes Rotten Tomatoes also lies, I think. It's the same as like IMDb with their synopsis and whatnot. But yeah, it's a really, really fun film. It's very fast. It may slow down a little bit, but then it picks right back up. The acting's really good. They really flesh out all the characters because they have enough time to do so. And, they go to multiple locations. And the whole time, obviously, you're like, okay, who's the killer? Who's the killer? Who's the killer? Like you are in Scream, You're doing the exact same thing. The getup for the killer is pretty funny, Yeah. I mean, obviously they can't do the actual ghost face, so instead they use like a clown mask, which is really, really funny. The acting's good. There's some pretty beautiful scenes that they do on there. They were using some weird lenses where you kind of get like a fisheye lens, how it's kind of like warped around on certain areas, but I think that's just the testament of the time and also the location it was being filmed in. But it's definitely one you need to see, especially if you are going to see the new Scream movie. If you've already seen all the actual Scream films, go watch this one because it's fun. Seriously, it's super fun. And I'm sorry to getting you to watch an almost 3-hour film, Boomer. And I'm gonna say the same thing to everybody else, but it's worth it. It really, really is.
No, I don't. I don't mind it. I don't mind a long movie, as long as it's entertaining. I did find this entertaining, and something else that I really, and I'm not going to go too far again because I don't want to spoil it or anything. But you talked about like the clown mask, and it's funny how much practical kind of joking that the killer does in this movie. There are certain things that he does that kind of like had me chuckling. That actually gave me a laugh. There's a few scenes before he does his reveal, and there's I'm going to end up spoiling it. Okay, no, I'm not going to talk about it. But yes, so there's just the way that the killer handles himself is kind of in a comical manner. In some of the scenes, and it really, really adds to it. But it does tie into the film at the very end, and with the costume. And so you may be sitting there for a little bit like, why is he doing that? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But it actually it works with the character and the type of killer that they're portraying, and I thought that was kind of neat as well.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I actually really liked the reveal at the end because it was different. You obviously can't do 1-for-1. There are people out there who would do a 1-for-1 of Scream, but how they handled the end and why this was happening, and you're like, oh wow, that's really crazy. And then you start thinking back from everything that happened, and you're like, okay, that makes sense. So it really does tie in. Nothing is really loose here. It's very fleshed out, I think, the characters and how people go down, why people are killed, what happens with the police and just everybody who surrounds it. And it also takes place in a school, which is really, really cool that they had some shots in the college. So there was a lot of stuff going on in this film, and it's one that needs to be added to the list. So when you're on ScreamBox and you are already in the middle of watching something, make sure you add this to your watch list as well as The Barn. They're both really good watches, and do what we did. Do a double feature. Do either The Barn and and then The Barn. Whatever you want. I did and then I did The Barn because I wanted a fast-paced film, like a really fast-paced film, because The Barn is really, really fast-paced. But yeah, it's really fun. Both of these are really, really fun. ScreamBox, you need to go on there. Boomer, it was great having you on here, man. I don't know if you have any last words, or if you want to tell everybody what you're doing and where they can find you and all that stuff, because this was a fun talk, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. So, no, I mean, I think we touched on about everything that we can without trying to ruin the movie for everyone. But it's so hard because there are some scenes in here that I'm dying to talk about, Matt. I'll just tell you my favorite scene offline because I really, really got a kick out of it.
Hell yeah.
But if you'd like to check us out, you can do so at Podcast in the Woods, and we are on all major podcasting platforms. So wherever you listen to your podcast, we're going to be on there. We are a little bit camp, a little bit of intelligence, and that's mainly from my wonderful co-host Gabby, who will also be on here. And I do want to shout her out real quick. It is Women in Horror Month, and I do love Gabby so much. She is amazing, and she has just some tremendous takes. She's hilarious, and I'm so happy. The show would not be what it is without her. So I just wanted to say a special thank you. I love you, and I know you'll be listening and you'll be on here, and I can't wait to hear her talk about Hell House because she loves that movie.
Hell yeah.
And then you can also, if you'd like to follow us on social media, and we interact with everybody. I'm super, super big on getting to talk to our listeners, and I put out polls and stuff I'm watching, and all kinds of stuff, what we're doing all the time. We love to interact with our listeners. You can do that at Woods Podcast 1 on both Twitter and Instagram.
Hell yeah. Yeah, so this series, it's not full-blown reviews. It's just touching on things as to why you need to watch it, why it is essential in our hearts. All right, so this isn't like big movies that everybody knows. It's essential movies to us, why it needs to be added to your library, and why you need to do it on ScreamBox. It was really, really fun, Boomer, and you'll be on again. I know you will, and we'll be talking about some more horror films. But if there's anybody who's listening, and there's a movie you think that we should cover on here that's maybe an essential pick for you, let us know on any of the platforms. You can do it on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere, and maybe we will get it in there. There's a lot of movies to cover. We might not go over all of them, but who knows? We might in the end. All right, Boomer, this is great. Thank you for being here, man. And please go support Podcast in the Woods. They are great. They're really, really funny. They cover some really good stuff. Some underground stuff sometimes. A lot of wacky things because a Boomer loves wacky shit, as you can see from the barn. So, yes, please go support them.
Hey, thanks, my dude. It was nice talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. And everybody, stay tuned for the next one. We have some really big stuff coming out. And as always, Dean is really busy at the moment, so he may not be on every single episode that we're doing for the next couple of weeks, but he will be here. So just if you are in the UK area and you're attending any of the conventions, please go say hi to him, buy some hot sauce, and say that I sent you. All right, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one.